Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for being
We have
here.
a fun conversation today. I,
Yeah.
I wanted to have this conversation. First of all, it's going to be all about interviews
Mhm.
and interviewing for a residency, interviewing for jobs, especially in the pharmacy field, what
Yeah.
that's like, what's helped me, and my horrible, horrible experience. Of course, I enjoy telling stories and I enjoy telling really embarrassing stories about myself.
Not with you priming it like horrible, horrible, horrible. Like,
But the thing is, like, every time I talk to Sally in our conversations so far that we've put online, Sally's always like, "If they can just bring me in for an interview, I'm gonna seal the deal." And for me, I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm terrified." So,
oh,
it's a 2 different perspective, I think.
it is. It's so crazy that different people, like we have different perceptions of ourselves as competitors. I'm always just like, the reason why I love interviewing so much is whether I have gotten the job or not, I always have a goal and a strategy of what I want to leave behind. And that storytelling component with that clarity of purpose that I come in with, that's what makes me so confident that the interview is not going to be where I bomb it.
Welcome to the HRX Friends We Got This podcast, where we share our thoughts on the pharmacy profession, experiences as healthcare providers, and explore our identities as 2 women of color going after it all.
Hey, as we share our stories, we hope you laugh, maybe cry, and feel inspired as you get to know us. Because at the end of the day, friends, we got
We
this.
got this.
We do.
Do's and don'ts.
Oh
So,
boy.
do's,
Look
practice.
good. Look good. Look good for your
Oh,
interview. Like,
I agree with that because if you look good, then you feel more confident.
yes, you do.
Yeah,
Yes, you do.
very true. Like, you're also confident because you know you look good.
You
So
know
you're
you
like,
look
Yeah,
good.
you're
It's
strutting
like
down the hallway. I'm like, nice to meet you. You don't want to be, but you don't want to be wearing like a new shirt that you haven't worn before
Mhm.
because you don't want to be like worried, like, oh my God, is my shirt too see through? During an
Yeah,
interview?
you are
Nightmare.
such a girl. You're such
What?
a girl. You're like thinking about all the things. Like, wait, is this the right bra under the shirt? No,
Oh,
I
yeah.
gotta do that other color. It's because for girls, it's a whole process to show up polished, appropriate,
Yeah.
and
Is my lipstick
everything,
on
you
my teeth?
know?
No, you don't want to be thinking about stuff like that.
You don't. It
Very
needs to be
true.
a shirt, you know. It needs to be a shirt, you know, and it needs to be shoes, you know.
And pants that are comfortable. Just yeah,
Everything.
look good, but also feel comfortable. Instead of worrying about the other candidates or whatever, on the inside, you're like,
Yes.
I am so hot. I am doing
Yes.
good. I'm where I'm meant to
Yes.
be.
A don't is for me, it's perfume on interview day.
Ooh, really? Yeah, that could really annoy me too. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know what people's sensitivities are, particularly if you are interviewing in a hospital. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
just your sensitivity. If they take you on a patient care floor, there could be patient sensitivities.
Yeah.
It's about simplicity, a fresh, clean approach, no perfume, no aftershave, gents. Let's just keep it with soap and water today. It's one day. It's gonna be okay.
What's another do? I said practice before,
Oh,
but that's an
1050.
obvious thing. Like
But dude, you
you
would
better
think
practice.
that. You know how many people cold turkey interview because they just have so much confidence in their ability to be likable.
Wow.
I asked them, what was your strategy to prepare for the interview? Oh, I looked at some questions online and I didn't really practice with anyone else and just went and I'm like, okay, so you cold turkey interview. Well, I looked at the questions. Okay.
No, 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 no.
Like
You have to practice
practice.
it yourself, like
No.
in the mirror,
Yes.
film yourself if you have to. There's
Yes.
so many options now.
Too
But
many.
I think the most important thing, and I can't emphasize this enough, is to make sure you run your answers with somebody else.
Yes.
I actually ran my answers with a friend of mine, and she's like, "Ooh, don't do that one because that one makes you look bad."
Go, friend. I want to give a shout out to all the friends that give you the
The
honest
real
feedback
feedback,
and
yeah.
keep it funky with you, even when you're not trying to hear it. Don't be late, but that's obvious.
Yeah,
But
that's very
but it still
obvious.
happens, right? Don't be late,
Yeah.
but people still come late. I had interviews
Oh,
in 2 interviews in Connecticut, and it snowed all night into the morning. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to head to the hospital that day in an Uber because just coming late was
Yeah.
not an option. Like I got to that hospital at like 5 a.m., sat in the lobby, continued practicing, continued reviewing my CV, kill time. The director of pharmacy walked past me, didn't know I was coming to the pharmacy for interview in like a couple hours. He later meets me and was like, "Did you sleep in our lobby?" Talk
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
about humiliated. I was too paranoid about being late. He's like, "Well, we
Yeah.
started late because everyone else interviewed. We came late." Right?
Hey,
But
at least
that's
again, memorable. Memorable story.
memorable. I'm
The girl
I'm
who
doing
slept in our
it.
lobby, we should have her on. She's already sleeping here.
She's dedicated. A do that I think doesn't get done enough is storytelling. I love this one question, but it freaks students out every time we're practicing. It's what do you think is most important? Personability with your patients or your clinical aptitude?
Can you say both?
Look
Or
at
is
you.
that cheating?
I'm just gonna slide right in here in the middle and say I think they're both important.
Yeah. I
But
don't
what
want to
I
have to
tend to
compromise one over the other.
right, many of the students, believe it or not, think that they need to lean to the clinical aptitude side because they don't want to give up the energy that they are. Okay, Sue is waving her hand in the air. If you're just listening to us, she's like, no, no, no. Right?
You
They tend to
guys.
lean that way until I tell them it's the soft skills. It's the people skills. It's your
Ugh,
ability to
very true. Anyone can be taught anything.
thank
Clinical
you.
abilities can be taught easily, but if you don't
Yes.
have the soft skills, you're going to struggle
Yes.
hard because guess what? Healthcare is about people. I know that
People.
oftentimes school does not focus on that enough.
How do we forget that?
Like in the business side of things, it
Yeah.
is the patient satisfaction as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Is are patients going to recommend your facility to other people?
People.
You're an employee at the end of the day,
Mhm.
and you need to be helping the business bring in money. And that
And
is a people thing, which
I
is
don't
unfortunate,
know.
but you need to know that too,
You
you
need
know?
to know
You need to
that,
be
right?
aware of that. Yeah.
And I'm always fascinated that many of them, like when we're going through feedback and I tell them interpersonability as a healthcare, forget that you're a pharmacist as a healthcare, that's how you get the techs to cooperate with you. That's how you get other pharmacists to build relationships with them. That's how you get physicians. That's how you build trust with the providers. That's how you get to become the first person on the list when social worker is running out of options on securing drugs for their patient. Once you've been labeled as unapproachable, condescending, rude, just no one cares about what you know. In fact, they'll rather go walk on hot coal than come to you with a question because they know you're about
Honestly,
to reduce them to ash.
yeah, honestly, working with people who can't deal with other people is so
Yeah,
tough. So
it's
you don't want to
tough.
be
That
saying
person.
it like, yeah, you don't want to be that person for
Don't be
sure.
that person.
I would say a big do is to write down all the accomplishments that you've had throughout your life, but especially in pharmacy so far, and
Yeah.
use that as storytelling
I
component.
call it I call it the humble brag list.
Ooh, humble
It's
brag.
it's such a it's such a weird title. How do I humbly brag? But it's a thing. It's not bragging if I have proof of I did these things. When I tell me about yourself and we go through and they're talking, I always have the CV pulled up and I'm like, so you're Rokai, so you're in PLS. So you have 3 publications. You've had a publication every year in pharmacy school. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's like their response. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
forgot about that. That was
I
me.
forgot about that. They tend to downgrade a lot of the things that they've done. I go through an exercise with the students and I tell them, why don't we disconnect from ourselves for a second? Let's create an avatar of ourselves and build your humble brag list. Like, give this avatar a name. And then look at your CV and give her her props. Give him or her their props. I want you to start answering these interview questions as if you're talking about this other person.
That's so
That's how,
smart.
right?
That's
Like,
such a
that's
smart
how
thing.
I get them to completely just break up with themselves. And then, like, some of them just like,
Oh.
whew, I'm bad. I'm
I
like, yeah, you
honestly,
are. You
I might even try that next time I do an interview because
It's
that's so
really I've
cool.
what do you value most in a team? What are the roles that most
I
people
love
pin you
that.
for during a group project? Tell me about a time you were in a group and you failed. You succeeded. You didn't meet deadlines. It's not always pretty. You got to be able to tell a story around the times like you also didn't get it right. But back to your point, like the monumental point of you have to practice, practice, practice. Because I don't know how quickly things come to your mind when you're nervous, but I'm sitting there like, I have so many examples. I can't pick one.
Yeah. I would also say a big do for me is to be able to show off your personality in
Yeah.
between questions and or if you're walking around and having the tour, be charismatic. Start
Yeah.
talking to people in a friendly way, maybe even make jokes and be
Yeah.
funny, like be yourself,
Be
show off your
yourself.
personality. I feel like we're so nervous to do that and
Mhm.
I just feel like that's one way to I don't know, be
I
memorable.
agree.
Okay, last one.
A
Make it good.
major don't. Something that you
Oh.
will 99% of the time have on residency interview is a clinical challenge. Do not guess. We do not guess. As a
Ah!
pharmacist, your job is to get it right 100% of the time.
Say it with me, guys. Say it with me. I don't know, but I will look it up.
Do not go on a roundabout and think that you're going to politically correctly answer that. It's a clinical challenge. We have a right answer in mind that we are looking for. And if you cannot deliver that, you cannot deliver that unless you look it up, which is 1000% allowed as a pharmacist. But what is not
Oh, yeah.
allowed is guessing. I can't
Okay.
believe this fled my mind.
Oh, good. That's a really good one. And actually this is a really good example of clinical jobs in general. It's not even residency because I've
Mm-hmm.
been in two clinical job interviews now, clinical position interviews now where it's a lot of clinical questions and clinical cases that I have to review. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, even after 6, 7 years of practicing, there's still areas where I don't know on the top of my head. And no
Yes.
matter how much I practice or studied before the interview, I will still don't remember or I still don't have that experience. And so then during
Exactly.
the interview, I say very honestly, I've never had to do that before, but I'm sure I can look up the guidelines available
Yes.
to make the proper decisions and have a
Yes.
conversation with my team.
Yes.
My first clinical interview was probably one of the most intimidating job interviews
Wow.
I've ever had. I had a freaking like a 3-page clinical test basically.
Yeah.
3 or 4 different cases, really tough cases. One of them I had to manage somebody's pain. One of them I had
Mm.
to work on a TPN. Oh
Wow.
man, it was scary because the TPN I hadn't done TPN in a year. So I remember what I could.
I've done TPN. Never.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I remember what I could, but honestly, I told them like this is what I created so far. I haven't done TPN in a while, but I know what we're looking for and I can definitely use your protocol to guide me to the right direction. And even with the pain management, I went on a palliative care rotation, one palliative care rotation.
Yeah.
So I don't remember all the details of pain management, but I
Yeah.
do remember the most important ones. And then again, I said to them, I haven't done pain management in a while, but I know that there's a protocol that we could use. Plus, these are the resources that I would look at if I were to make recommendations.
That's it. That's it
I
right there.
just knowing where you can go to
Go where
get the
you can
information
go.
because
Yes.
there's no way that you have all of it in your head, especially when you don't have all the resources around you. So,
They believe that the clinical challenge, they must nail it. They must nail it.
yeah.
I will never tell someone to not prepare for the clinical challenge component of their interview. It is a component of your interview, right? But more important than anything, I think, is your ability to actually present that case, your ability to verbally convey that you understood the case, you understood what your challenge was. And now the problem you're having is actually building that plan for the patient without the proper resource and support that you need. There are some unforgivables, of course. Like if I ask you what is the mechanism of action of a DOAC, a mechanism of like to me, those things that are unforgivable during an interview is basic pharmacology. When I'm
Oh
working
my
with it,
god.
I tell them if I ask you what's the mechanism of action of Entresto or what is the, you better not tell me I have to look that up. no, I'm unforgiving when it comes to basic
Oh
pharmacology
gosh.
because I feel like all your rotations this year, whether it was ED or crit care or something, somebody had drilled home that pharmacology and understanding how drug works and what the major things you look out for, it's the first thing you want to have down pack about the drugs for some of these big disease states. But don't guess. If you don't know the
That's a
pharmacology,
that's the most important one, and
it's
just
very
don't guess
important.
in
Mhm,
general. And this is why it's
mhm.
so important because we want to make sure that when you're actually working in that facility and a
Yeah.
patient is asking you a question or a nurse or provider or something, that you're not just giving them a random answer off the top of
Answer.
your head without being for sure that that
Yeah.
is the right thing. Because if you tell them something that's incorrect that you just guess on
It
top of your
touches the
head,
patient.
you may hurt somebody. That
Yes.
is such a crucial thing, like, that's the thing that will freak me out the most if I notice a resident or a student doing that. I would
You
correct them
know,
immediately. I would say,
immediately.
"Please just tell me you don't know and go look
Yeah.
it up," rather
Yeah.
than just telling me an answer that you think might be right, because that's
Might
not
be
how
right.
it's
No.
just not safe. An RPD asked me a question about, "What if you were an animal, what animal would you be?"
They're the fun ones.
The
Those are
fun
the
ones.
fun ones. If you could be a drug, what drug would you be?
Oh, that's a fun one too.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
my answer, okay, so so the person who asked me this question was an Asian man, and in
Okay.
my head I was like a dragon. But then I was like, "Oh my god, that might be like a little bit too race like related."
You were really thinking hard.
I was really like, "Oh, wait a minute. I don't know if I should say that." So I said a dog because it can be trained and to do many things.
Oh, but
So I went with the
that's such
more
a good
basic answer. I
answer.
should have gone with dragon. Like, "I'm a dragon, baby."
Oh my God. Listen, if you're only listening to this episode, you have to go on YouTube and watch it because you have to see Thu impersonate a dragon. It's
Oh
gonna
my
be the
god,
highlight
my
of your
dragon
day.
is almost like my Mulan dragon, like Mushu.
Mushu. I got hit with you're stranded on an island. What three things do you have to bring with you?
People ask that a lot.
Um,
My
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 anti-rejection
I
meds.
was gonna say
I don't
oh.
get I don't get to bring water. I don't get to it's like how am I going to take the meds? Well, we're going to figure out we'll look for a stream, but I know that no matter what happens, I have to have my Tacro, my MMF and my prednisone. Once I
Done.
have
Three
those three
things.
things,
Done. But
I'm going to be
okay,
okay.
that's a good point because should students disclose an opioid of some form? Like, I'm gonna bring some oxycodone for pain. Should they?
Yeah,
Is that too
right?
much? Is
Like,
that
oh,
too
what kind of
suspicious?
pain? It's
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean, if you're stranded a deserted island, you would imagine maybe you got into a major accident, like the plane
yes,
had crashed,
that's right. Injuries, right?
and you may need oxycodone. I don't know.
Yeah. You
Is
may
this
need
too
pain man. I
is this
tend
too
to advise
explicit? I feel bad now.
no,
Do we
don't.
bleep this out? No, I'm
I
just kidding.
usually recommend the Tylenol route. That
Go with a
Tylenol.
more PG. Yeah, go with PG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the stranded island question, the reason why it's so popular, it's because people who answer it well do it by storytelling. Like they share things
Mm.
about themselves, right? Like a really cool story. The girl, she was like, well, I'm pretty much allergic to everything, so my EpiPen has to come with me. I was like, oh, so she has a lot of
That's
allergies.
smart.
Like
That's
I'm
smart.
learning something about her.
Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in to us today. If this episode speaks to you and you think that others may benefit from hearing our stories, send this episode to them. And this way, it'll help them, but it also will help us reach more people.
Absolutely. This episode is going to be available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast. You can connect with us through all of our individual socials that will be linked in the episode descriptions below with our handles and how you can find and support us and support the podcast. As always, we are so appreciative. Do not forget to rate and review the show. It means so much to us. Until next time, don't you forget it. We got
We
this.
got this.
Bye, everybody.